In the winter of 1957, a young boy was discovered in a lonely stretch of woods in Philadelphia. He lay abandoned in a cardboard box, his small body showing the signs of a violent life and a tragic end. For over 65 years, he was a ghost, a nameless face on a poster known only as the Boy in the Box. But now, we finally know his name, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. With his identity revealed, the search for his killer has taken on a new urgency. For more than half a century, the case of the Boy in the Box stood as one of America's most heartbreaking and haunting unsolved murders. He became a symbol of the forgotten, a child who seemed to belong to no one, his very existence shrouded in mystery. His image was plastered on posters throughout the city. His story recounted by generations of detectives who refused to let his case fade into obscurity. He was known as America's Unknown Child, a title that highlighted the profound tragedy of a life cut short and an identity erased. But in 2022, something incredible happened. After 65 years of silence, forensic science finally gave him his name back. The revelation of his identity, Joseph Augustus Zarelli, was a monumental breakthrough, but it was just the beginning of a new chapter, the relentless pursuit of justice for a little boy who was finally known. February 25, 1957. In the cold, damp woods of the Fox Chase neighborhood in Philadelphia, a young college student named Frederick Benonis was checking his rabbit traps. As he moved through the underbrush, something unusual caught his eye. It was a large cardboard box, the kind that might have once held a baby bassinet from JCPenney. Inside, wrapped in a worn plaid blanket, lay the naked body of a small boy. The scene was one of quiet horror. The boy, estimated to be between 4 and 6 years old, was terribly malnourished. His body was a roadmap of suffering, covered in bruises and surgical scars on his ankle and groin. Yet there were strange signs of recent care. His hair had been crudely cut, with clumps still clinging to his body, and his fingernails were neatly trimmed. He had been beaten to death, with blunt force trauma determined to be the cause. When the police arrived, they faced a crime that was both brutal and baffling. There were no signs of a struggle at the scene, suggesting the boy had been killed elsewhere and dumped in the woods. The blanket and the box were the only clues investigators had. The box was traced back to a JCPenney store, but thousands had been sold, making it an impossible lead to follow. From the very start, it was clear this case would be unlike any other. The biggest question wasn't just who committed this horrific act, but a far more fundamental one. Who was this child? Philadelphia police launched a massive effort to identify the boy. They printed hundreds of thousands of flyers featuring his post-mortem photograph, plastering his face in post offices, police stations, and liquor stores all over the city and beyond. Newspapers across the country picked up the story, his innocent face staring out from the pages, a silent plea for someone, anyone, to claim him. But no one did. No missing person reports matched his description. No frantic parents came forward. No relatives recognized the distinctive scars on his body. It was as if he had simply appeared out of thin air, a child with no past and no name. In a desperate attempt to jog someone's memory, investigators even dressed the boy in children's clothing and posed him sitting up for a photograph, hoping a more lifelike image might spark a connection. Still, nothing. Coroners created a death mask to preserve his features, and his fingerprints were taken and run through national databases. Every lead turned out to be a dead end. The silence was deafening. He was buried in a potter's field with a simple, heartbreaking headstone that read, "America's Unknown Child." The city of Philadelphia, and indeed the entire nation, was captivated by the profound sadness of his case. He wasn't just an unidentified victim. He was a child who had been denied the basic dignity of a name and a place in the world. As years turned into decades, the boy's case file grew thicker, filled with theories that ranged from the plausible to the bizarre. The mystery became an obsession for many, especially a medical examiner's office employee named Remington Bristow. Bristow dedicated much of his life to the case, convinced he could solve it. One of the most persistent theories he pursued centered on a foster home located about a mile from where the boy was found. A psychic had pointed Bristow towards the home, and when he investigated, he found a bassinet similar to the one sold in the JCPenney box and blankets that resembled the one wrapped around the boy. He theorized that the boy might have belonged to the stepdaughter of the man who ran the foster home and was disposed of to hide an out-of-wedlock birth. However, police thoroughly investigated the family and found all the foster children in their care were accounted for, eventually clearing them of any involvement. Another theory emerged in 2002 from a woman known only as Martha. She came forward with a shocking story, claiming her abusive mother had purchased a young boy named Jonathan in 1954, kept him in their basement, and ultimately beat him to death in a fit of rage before dumping his body in Fox Chase. Investigators found her story credible in some aspects, but were hampered by her history of mental illness and could never fully corroborate the claims. It was yet another promising lead that evaporated into thin air. Through all of this, generations of detectives inherited the case, each one hoping to be the one to finally give the boy his name. But for 65 years, that was a question no one could answer. The breakthrough didn't come from a dusty file or a deathbed confession. It came from a revolution in science, forensic genetic genealogy. In 2019, investigators were granted a court order to exhume the boy's remains one last time. This time, they were armed with technology that didn't exist for the original detectives. They managed to extract a tiny, usable sample of the boy's degraded DNA. This is where the painstaking work began. Forensic genealogists, experts who use DNA to build family trees, took this genetic profile and uploaded it to public DNA databases, the kind that millions of people use to trace their own ancestry. They were looking for anyone who shared a significant amount of DNA with the boy, a second, third, or even fourth cousin. After years of work, they found a match. From that one distant relative, genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick described the process as being like a giant Sudoku puzzle, building out family trees, branch by branch, moving forwards and backwards in time until they could identify a common ancestor. It was an incredibly complex process that took over 2 years. Eventually, they narrowed their search down to a specific woman they believed was the boy's mother. Armed with this information, detectives obtained a court order for her birth records and discovered that she had given birth to a male child in 1953. They had found him. On his birth certificate was the name he had been denied for 65 years, Joseph Augustus Zarelli, born January 13, 1953. On December 8, 2022, the Philadelphia Police Department held a press conference that sent shockwaves across the country. They announced that the boy in the box was Joseph Augustus Zarelli. They also revealed that through the same genealogical work, they had identified his parents, both of whom were now deceased. To protect the privacy of living family members, their names have not been released. Joseph, they discovered, has living half-siblings. Finally knowing his name completely re-energized the investigation. It was no longer an abstract mystery about an unknown child. It was a homicide investigation for a 4-year-old boy named Joseph. Investigators now had a family tree, a timeline, and a place to start digging. A neighborhood in West Philadelphia where Joseph's family once lived. Police hoped that the public announcement would trigger memories, that someone who was a child in the 1950s might remember a little boy named Joseph who suddenly disappeared. However, time remains the biggest enemy. With Joseph's parents gone and nearly 7 decades having passed, police acknowledged the difficulty ahead. Philadelphia Police Captain Jason Smith stated, "It's going to be an uphill battle for us to definitively determine who caused this child's death. We may not make an arrest. We may never make an identification, but we're going to do our darndest to try. The search for his killer is no longer a cold case. It is an active and determined hunt for the person or people responsible for his murder. For 65 years, a grave at Ivy Hill Cemetery marked the final resting place of a ghost. But today, that grave finally bears a name. In early 2023, a new headstone was unveiled for Joseph Augustus Zarelli, engraved with his name and his picture. America's unknown child is unknown no more. The identification of Joseph is a monumental victory for forensic science and a testament to the detectives who never gave up. But it's a bittersweet resolution. While one great mystery has been solved, the ultimate question remains: who took his life? Who is responsible for the bruises, the scars, and the final brutal act that ended his short time on Earth? The story of Joseph Augustus Zarelli is a powerful reminder that no victim is ever truly forgotten. His name has been returned to him, his story is finally being told, and somewhere out there, the answer to his murder may still be waiting to be discovered. The hunt for justice for Joseph continues. The investigation into the murder of Joseph Augustus Zarelli is ongoing. If you enjoy deep dives into cases like this and want to stay updated, please consider subscribing to the channel. Sharing this story helps keep Joseph's memory alive and puts pressure on the continued search for answers. Thank you for watching.